You woke up this morning feeling tired, not because you didn't sleep enough, not because you're sick, just tired. A heaviness that sits behind your eyes and doesn't lift. Most people know that feeling. More people know it now than at any other point in human history. Depression affects over 280 million people worldwide. According to the World Health Organization, it is the single leading cause of disability on the planet. Anxiety disorders are rising faster than any previous generation has ever tracked. Rates of loneliness in the developed world have doubled since the 1980s, despite more connection than ever being technically available to us. And yet, your ancestors, the people who walked barefoot across savannas, who buried children without hospitals, who survived winters without heat, those people almost never got depressed. Not because their lives were easier, they weren't. Not because they were tougher or more stoic or simply better at hiding pain. The answer is far stranger, and it says something deeply uncomfortable about the world you've built. Your brain was not designed for the life you're living. That is not an insult. It is a fact that anthropologists, evolutionary biologists, and neuroscientists have been quietly assembling for decades. The human brain in its current form is roughly 200,000 years old. For the vast majority of that time, about 190,000 years, every single human on Earth lived in small groups. Tight, face-to-face communities of 30 to 150 people. People who knew your name. People who noticed when you were gone. This is not a romantic idea. It is structural. Evolutionary biologist Robin Dunbar famously proposed that the human brain's social processing capacity maxes out at around 150 stable relationships. Not acquaintances, not followers. Relationships, people you know, trust, and move through life with. For 95% of human history, that number was your entire world. And it turns out that world was almost perfectly sized for the human mind. Think about what daily life actually looked like for your ancestors. You woke up with other people around you, not in a separate bedroom behind a closed door. Physically close, bodies near bodies, breathing near breathing. Research by anthropologist David Sampson at the University of Toronto has shown that hunter-gatherer sleep patterns involve near constant social proximity. You were never truly alone, even unconscious. You spent your day doing things with your hands, gathering food, building shelter, making tools, tending fire. These are not small things. Physical movement, the sustained, purposeful, full-body kind, triggers a cascade of neurochemical events that modern medicine has only recently started to understand. Stanford neuroscientist Andrew Huberman has described how bilateral physical movement, the kind that involves alternating left-right motion, like walking, directly activates the brain's threat processing system in a way that reduces its intensity. It literally processes fear and anxiety out of the body. Your ancestors walked an average of 10 to 15 kilometers every single day, not as exercise, as life. And then there was sunlight. Every morning, without exception, ancient humans got outside, not eventually, immediately. The sun rose and they were in it. Light exposure in the first hour after waking is one of the most powerful regulators of human mood chemistry. It sets your cortisol curve, the hormone that governs alertness, energy, and the body's ability to come down from stress later in the day. When you get strong morning light, your brain learns that the day is safe. Your serotonin rises, your sleep pressure builds correctly. Everything downstream, mood, focus, resilience, depends on this one input your ancestors got automatically every single day. Most people today never see direct sunlight until mid-morning at the earliest, often through glass, often after staring at an artificial screen that sends precisely the wrong signal to the brain's light-sensitive cells. You are running an ancient machine on the wrong fuel. But there is something even more important than movement and sunlight. Something your ancestors had in abundance that the modern world has quietly stripped away. Purpose that you could see. Psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz and spent the rest of his life studying human resilience, wrote in his landmark book Man's Search for Meaning that the single most powerful protector against psychological collapse was not comfort, not safety, and not happiness. It was meaning, the sense that your actions mattered, that your presence had a direct effect on the world around you. For your ancestors, this was not a philosophical question. It was daily reality. You hunted and the tribe ate. You gathered and the children survived. You carried water and someone's fever broke. The feedback loop between your effort and your impact was immediate, visible, and felt in your body. Modern life has severed that loop almost completely. You do tasks, you send emails, you generate reports. The chain from your action to its human consequence is so long, so mediated, so invisible that your ancient brain, the one still looking for proof that your existence matters, often finds nothing. Psychologist Martin Seligman, one of the founders of positive psychology, identified this phenomenon in his research on what he called learned helplessness, a state where the brain stops trying because it can no longer detect a reliable connection between its actions and outcomes. His experiments were done with animals first, but his findings mapped precisely onto human depression. Your ancestors never experienced learned helplessness. Their actions had immediate, undeniable consequences. Every single day. There is another layer to this that is almost never discussed. Ancient humans grieved together. When someone in the tribe died, the whole tribe stopped. Not for a day, not for a respectable minimum period before returning to productivity. They stopped, gathered, wailed, held each other, and processed death as a collective event. Researcher Mary Frances O'Connor at the University of Arizona studies the neuroscience of grief. Her work shows that grief is not a purely emotional process. It is a neurological reorganization. The brain must literally remap its predictions about the world when someone who mattered is gone. And this process, when done in isolation, when suppressed, when rushed, becomes pathological. Your ancestors understood something about this intuitively. Grief was communal. It was loud. It was physical. It moved through the body in ceremony, in song, in the presence of others who were also changed by the loss. Modern grief is largely private. You take a few days off work. You are expected to function. The people around you don't know how to be present with you in the rawness of it. And so the brain tries to complete its reorganization alone. And sometimes it can't. Here is what is worth sitting with. Your ancestors didn't have antidepressants. They didn't have therapists, or meditation apps, or weighted blankets, or any of the tools the modern world reaches for when the mind begins to darken. What they had was structure. Not imposed structure. Natural structure. A life built around the exact conditions the human brain evolved to need. Community that was close enough to touch. Movement that was woven into survival. Sunlight that arrived without an alarm clock. Purpose that was immediately visible in the world. Grief that was processed out loud. Together. None of these things were wellness practices. They were just life. They happened automatically every day for hundreds of thousands of years. And then, in the span of roughly 200 years, a blink of evolutionary time, almost all of them disappeared. Not violently, not because anyone planned it, but because the industrial world restructured human life around a different set of priorities. Efficiency, productivity, individual achievement. And in doing so, it quietly removed almost every condition the ancient brain required to stay balanced. This does not mean your ancestors were immune to suffering. They experienced loss, fear, rage, and despair. The difference was not in the absence of darkness. The difference was in the structural supports that surrounded it. Pain moves through the body more cleanly when the body is moving. Loss integrates more completely when it is witnessed. Fear processes faster when you are physically present with other humans whose nervous systems can regulate yours. Meaning accumulates naturally when your daily actions have visible consequences. When those supports are absent, pain doesn't move. It stays. It compresses. It becomes a weight that sits behind the eyes and doesn't lift. There is one more thing your ancestors did that almost no one in the modern world does anymore. They sat with fire. Not metaphorically, literally. Every single night, without exception, ancient humans gathered around a fire as the day ended. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner at the University of Utah spent years documenting evening fire talk among the Juhoan Bushmen of southern Africa. Her research found something that sounds almost too simple. Daytime conversation was almost entirely practical. Work, food, plans. But evening fire talk was almost entirely about people, stories, relationships, the inner lives of those around you. This was not entertainment, this was emotional processing. Every evening, the mind had a structured opportunity to reflect on the day, to place its events inside a shared narrative, to feel witnessed by others before sleep. That is gone. You scroll instead. You watch strangers instead of talking to the people next to you. Your evening signal to your nervous system is not warmth and human voices. It is blue light and passive consumption. And your brain, which evolved for 200,000 years expecting fire and community every night, gets something it cannot metabolize. You woke up this morning feeling tired, heavy, like something is wrong, but you can't name it. Your ancestors would have understood that feeling. They would have handed you something to do with your hands, walked with you until the sun was high, sat with you until you said the thing you needed to say, and reminded you, not with words, but with their presence, that you were visible, that you were known. That, it turns out, is almost the entire prescription. The ancient humans didn't crack some secret code. They didn't have a technique or a philosophy or a system. They just lived in a way that matched the brain they had. And somewhere along the way, you stopped.